Прекрасно. Доброе утро, дамы и господа.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to hear you all, to see you all in this great hall, Hyper. We understand that today it's quite early morning, not everybody's here, but we are expecting also colleagues, those who are online, they can connect us.
Меня зовут Олег Теплов, я генеральный директор компании Ventures. Сегодня буду модератором сессии, которая носит название «Цифровой рынок или цифровой вектор рынка EdTech», как вообще онлайн-образование может
education and how can this online education change trends of today's market and help people to increase capital. Now it's quite a trendy word, human capital. So this how people feel in this world. This market of education is very growing, and this is one of the largest industries. The volume of the market amounts to 6% of the world GDP. It's about more than $6 trillion, and penetration of information systems started just recently. We can see several waves of this development. First, we had some assistance to pass tests, but now it goes everywhere, all layers of education, preschool, kids who are playing iPad at home, who have some educational games, till some corporate universities where employees are obliged to have testing, and not only they have to click somewhere, but they have to study, because the program is so smart, you can't go anywhere, you can't proceed and receive the next diploma or just get promotion along your career. The market, IT market, and EdTech, or something like this, grows by 15%. The Russian market showed quite serious growth rates until the end of last year. It grew more than the average world rates, but in accordance with our forecasts, we have pandemic, of course, which helped us a lot here, because now we had this education, really online education expanded, and my colleagues also received a lot of new skills. Someone studied new languages, someone new skills, other people changed activities, and that's thanks to this digital educational services which were available. And how this IT market is developing today, what about trends? We are waiting tactic prospects this year, and what will happen next year in education, the role of the government in education, what plans do we have here. So we'll speak about this with our colleagues, and it's very nice to be here in this hall, because Hyper, and this hall is the heart of Skolkovo EdTech cluster, and that's why I present our today's speakers. I will start with the
Наталья Царевская-Дякина. Добрый день, Наталья. Здравствуйте. Спасибо, что предоставили нам вашу площадку. Она уже, можно сказать, становится меккой дискуссии об EdTech, и мы сегодня еще об этом поговорим. Также очень будет приятно услышать мнение руководителя по цифровой трансформации
Просвещение in Russian, our unicorn in content, offline content, and you leader of the market. So, Vladimir Vorkachev, you're welcome. And I, in my welcoming word, I said that kids also receive profiling, and this is the resolve of the company.
И, конечно же, нельзя не отметить те
Vitaly, you are welcome. Also, I would like to speak about those content, these educational services and the courses which Skillbox is doing. Sergey Popkov, the co-founder of this. The world is changing, and I'm glad to see here Alexei Barabushev. I knew him as the head of the department, but now the whole Moscow cluster is under your charge, and I would like to give the floor. We are now in the building of Hypercube. Natalia, to you. What the question is the following: how can you characterize the state of domestic market at Tech? I knew that there were quite a lot of debate even in the Hypercube. We gathered so-called pioneers of Tech education. What actual trends can we see now? Good morning. Thank you very much that you invited me. And in the audience we have Daria also. And this is the only analytical structure which serves for this market. So a lot of things which I will say, it's done by the hands of Daria. And with my help, okay, if we were in the show, for example, I could say, please put the mic and say a few words. I have worked a lot with startups. First of all, these are entrepreneurs, and it's very interesting because when EdTech, which was born from the needs of teachers and people who had personal problems with education, to teach kids, the teachers who understood the whole problems of the basic system of education, they invented some programs. Mostly now we have entrepreneurs, not teachers, but entrepreneurs. We have an increase of entrepreneurs here. It means that people understand that this market can be commercialized, and we can offer also paid services which will be in demand, and customers will pay for them. That's why when I watch startups, I can see the trends. Trends are very flexible, and these entrepreneurs, they respond to all changes at the market. Out of all trends, without any assessment, of course, I will say, but out of any trends which are really noticeable, we can see the projects which help kids to pass exams and to have study of the subject in depth. And now the problems with unified exam is quite high. 50% of parents use the services of tutors, private tutors. That's why the growth of the projects which help children to finish education, the basic school subjects and additional subjects. We already spoke about professional orientation and soft skills, programming skills, which we don't have in basic education, but we can get this additionally. This is the trend which we have now, and it gains momentum. In its opposite, we have disappearance of startups which are aimed at school as a customer, because we know that by 2023 we'll have the state information system. The projects which were earlier aimed at school, now they are aimed at end customers, at parents. Now at school, of course, we know two examples, powerful examples. Uchiru, so the company is 10 years old, and 01 Mathematics company, the project with AI, it works with schools. But I think this is mostly an exception. This is regarding school education. And the second trend, this is also the additional education for adults. This is quite a stable trend. The economy changes so quickly, professions change quickly, and people can adopt several professions for his whole life. Now, there are also some noticeable moments like combination of school box methodology, and we know that in IT professions there are more people than it's needed sometimes, but the market is still very big and it can develop. If we speak about trends in development of startups, it's very interesting. We have a decline of projects which offer studying English. It means that actually there are less offers to learn English. What's new, but not so noticeable yet, but we expect it at the market? This is learning hard skill professions. There are so much debate how we can these professions, low-cost profession, have online. There are several projects also, and we can't say that they are growing so much, but guys are good because they divided methodology from practice, and now we all have this online. These projects work, and still then they rent a huge building to have practices, using equipment, meals, and so on. So some work with their hands. The next thing, this is teaching. Please don't take offended. 45 plus people. Thank you very much. That's very nice to hear. This is like pre-pension age, but now, we have our youth prolonged. Within 5 years, you have to learn something new. Yes, and get prepared for the rest, what you will have. So the projects for people 45 plus, these are specialists with huge knowledge and experience. They can develop further, they can change work. For them, for such people of this age, there are still any big players in this segment, and this is a huge segment. Millions of our citizens who really need this. And the next trend which exists, and it appeared several years ago, but now we don't have any method which we can believe. This is all which concerns soft skills, starting from psychology and, ending up with corporate soft skills. There are 3 directions: 45 plus people who should work with some equipment, using their hands, and different skills. In this case, we'll have some other players with very distinct methodology. Thank you very much. It's a pity we are short of time. This discussion is so interesting, and the topics which you touched upon are super relevant and exciting. Starting from startups and the services which are very useful for school kids, till other people who have already quite mature age. And yes, a person can really change professions, and he develops competences. He needs to have these competences somewhere. It's a very interesting cluster. And one more topic which you already touched upon leads us to the next speaker. This is the role of the government, and also the need to focus on some important things. Interaction of schools, new services, and digitalization. The question here will consist of 2 things. I will start with the representative of a very classic educational institute, просвещение, or enlightenment in English. This is not only the head of the digital transformation, but maybe you have some other things. What technological problems do you have? Maybe you are already using some new strategy. Do you also expand digitalization. I've spoken with some quite significant businessmen. When they plan to have an IPO, they always ask about the digitalization. If there are no online services, and investors are not ready to work with such companies. How do you see this development? And what advantages of a modern world are here? Okay, from the point of view of our digitalization, today we have certain challenges because Enlightenment, or our company Prosvещение, is 91 years old. Our content was created during this time period, and it has different formats. Now we want to go to the market with digital services, and this content should be rethought and reorganized. And first of all, we need the whole content to be unified in a digital way. And this is a very huge journey, and we did some of it already. Now all new books are created using very complex technological process. The book which you see, it's not even original. It's some kind of cross-section made out of digital original. The book, how it's being formed and its origin, this is digit, but the analog, it's one of the way to have it. When a book is created, it has a lot of metadata, it has a lot of different rules and setups. And when you put only one button, you can have a printed version, or if you click another button, you can have some abstract tasks in other formats. And then we have this challenge how to present this to the market and how to use different tools, for example, API. I think you all know this word very well. And the first task is to transfer all books which were created historically to this new modern formats. Secondly, to set up this complicated media of presenting this data, and thirdly, to organize educational services. There was a very good question about the difference of the current century from the previous one. We are going to this new format when, to some degree, we look at a book not like at a book, but as a content. And this allows us, to have a possibility to build even more in-depth, effective services for our customers. And this content can be presented to a wide circle of different partners, so we can have different programs. So we can have only one content, but we can add it with different digital services. We, in this case, we have a lot of content unified for everybody, and there are some other services like this. And when we spoke about this, that the Prosvещение company had a goal to go to IPO, the realization of this digital content was planned within the ecosystem. Despite whether to go to IPO or not, so this issue is still open, but nevertheless, we don't refuse from plans to build such a system, and we have a need for this. And this transformation, which we launched a long time ago, for example, technological process of creating a book and content changed. So it gains momentum. And in Prosvещение company has a big challenge now, how to build teams which could combine people who historically have worked at the content material in old-fashioned way, and now we need to have a new interactive format where we have different designers, IT people, and this collaboration is not so simple. because companies are split into two blocks, but nevertheless this gives the result, and I understand that it's okay. I have been working in all sector for a long time. I know how the company can change, really, and it's a new format, and I like to work at it even because I like change and challenge. I hope that we'll go to the end and will be successful. This transformation of Prosvещение company as a pioneer in all this educational sphere can really pay attention to new trends, and it will allow us to build more effective education, which will allow Russia to become even more successful company. Okay, super. Thank you very much. It's very nice to hear that the company goes in this direction and just not is written something in the strategy, but realizes very specific steps. I hope that among our participants of today's session, among those who watch us, I just wanted to say on TV, but no, in digital format, there will be some entrepreneurs which will offer Prosvещение company their services or products to become also a player, a significant player in the market. I have another small question. I can't but ask it. Now, at the Institutes of Development, there is such a term which is called seamless. Seamless means so seamless startups, seamless research, and so on. For example, startup is developing, then it gets grants. This first round, second round, it goes to the market, but this is about startups. And now we are speaking about people and about EdTech as a human capital. Do you have any plans to become seamless? Speaking about some kind of starting point, it's a person. It doesn't matter the age of the person, maybe a kid who comes to school, to the first grade, and then leaves the school, and he goes to the university or to the college. So what plans do you have here? Our plans are to give everything for a person, to educate him, to fill all his needs, so first preschool, then school, additional education, university or college, and the only segment which we are not planning to come there, this is education and corporations, because we believe that this is a very specialized niche. Education, maybe which needs some other even competences. Our key competence here, this is an ability to build up a mass education, to make a verified product linked with the government, and scale it up with many users. We can realize it with many segments. And if we look at our strategy, you can see there are services such as online courses, and different practices for unified state exam, professional navigation of entering universities, taking exams. There are also different services for teachers who help them to arrange their work, services to do homework. And our goal is to make such services so that they could cover all needs of children of all ages, and Prosvещение company can become the unified point of contact when even a person starts to think about education. But we don't think that it's possible at the Russian market to become the only player in this area. And our ambitions, ideas needed to go through partnership, collaboration. Everybody here can use this strong thing which we have now. This is an access to very specific customer, parent or child or teacher. Everybody can take advantage of our rather cheap traffic, but still can be also can present his or her, his product. And the service can be verified, useful, and available to everybody. Thank you very much. Yes, actually, corporate universities and corporate education, it's a separate cluster. I just recently I have spoken with one representative of HR direction, and it's oil gas company, and they said that we take students for work after the second course because we believe that for our goals 3 last years of university are not so needed, and we start already to work with them from the third course, and we have very specific tasks for them for development. Now I would like to proceed and to give the floor to the representatives of the industry of education. EdTech Natalia raised already a very interesting issue and topic, even the whole topic, combination of professions. Digitalization also, is not only in EdTech. This is, a profession which can combine a lot of things, because if you work at the combine somewhere at the field, you still should be a programmer. Because once I managed I used to manage the agricultural machine, and I felt as if I was in spacecraft. And I just even remember the Soviet Union movie. There are new professions appear, for example, science artist or data journalist, and everywhere you can have IT services, always and everywhere IT services. My question is to search. Maybe we'll start with you. What professions for today have a new life? Because I know that there are many new professions are dying out, and so we have new ones. You have a lot of knowledge and information. What is already in demand in the new market of educational courses and directions? Can you answer this question? This is a very interesting question, because what you've said already about this person who used combine at the field and the programmer, that's very really exciting, because we are using all these things, but also on the other hand there is a platform, and there are about 11 million users on the whole, because we have a lot of free content, and 400,000 these are paid users. And if we look at the demand which is here, there is awareness of what will be needed, but still there is a delay. When we speak about different things, starting with pandemic, these goals have not changed so much. There was a front-end developer who was in real demand, and still he is in demand now. Data scientist, yes, of course, in demand, because this is fashionable, this is promising. That's why the demand for data science people is very high. And also, if we speak about latest events and this IT benefits, changes in law and legislation, it also contributes. But though, if you want to understand, UX design is also an IT profession, so you can go and you have the profession as a graphic designer, but still then you can go to Yandex and you can get the same benefits as an IT and any IT. But nobody understands that UX designer, this is also a product designer, designer of interface. So we can see that this this understanding is quite delayed a little bit. Also, full stack has a very high demand. Full stack is everywhere in design and in development. Full stack developer is in demand because everybody needs such people, because these people have several expertise and they can combine different things together, and they can program and they can draw. So this is also very in demand.
We see the increase in demand. It's not formed yet, but still there is a demand for zero coding. So in a visual editor, you can just build a very cool computer game. You don't have to code a lot. You don't have to deal with the black dashboard, black console. So this direction of zero coding has also become quite popular. What we see is that this online demand is quite limited. When I take a look at the people that are coming to us, we have a lot of students that are over 40 years old. It's very interesting to observe how they change their career tracks. So just last week we had a defense of a project, and we had a truck driver who've become a developer. And so he said very honestly that he's got tired of driving a truck and he wanted to get a new profession. The crew members from the airlines are also coming to us and get trained. And we don't mention this a lot when it comes to IT and what is in demand, NFT, metaverse, etc. Of course, it is needed, but at the same time, we indeed should not forget about digital professions. The demand is quite high for that. We have over 10,000 interior designers studying, and we were the first ones to launch a design program online. And when we just started, everybody was thinking that we were crazy, but we did it. And now we've launched a faculty of confectionaries. So those are the confectionery cooks who also get trained in confectionery. So there are a lot of opportunities in EdTech, because in addition to the very interesting and trendy professions, there is a huge room for development in the field of IT. And the last area that we started to work on, well, I've already mentioned that about 40% of demand is for online courses, but we also are covering the offline opportunities, and what a person really needs is to get the professional guidance in the field of education, because one cannot just start to get trained in data science and understand very fast that, yes, this is my thing. It's good to start and try something out. And so a lot of people are asking, like, what's best for me? And the professional guidance could play a key role here. And I think that it should be done in an offline format. We should have some trainings, testing trainings, training workshops offline, then to involve people in the online program. Okay, thanks a lot. This is indeed very nice that you offer courses for designers as well as cooks and bakers. Well, you've mentioned UX and UI, that it is not in demand so much. That's true, actually, because if we take a look at the contemporary software solutions that were ordered by the state, by the government, quite often we pose a question like, who's written this interface? Who's done it, actually? Like, a very simple example is an icon to switch off your camera in one of the popular video editors, or as we call it, a quasi-Zoom video call. So this is just a button that is a smile with just two dots instead of eyes, etc. So who's done that? That's the question I'm asking. I'll definitely just recommend your courses for these designers, because we would like to have some user-friendly services. Thank you very much for mentioning the topic of professional guidance. This is indeed very important, because quite often in mono cities, there are employees that, like for example, leaving a factory, and this factory is being closed. And so what shall they do? Whom shall they become? To become bakers? To become just cleaners outside? This is indeed a topical and relevant question. And it's very nice to see that there are such courses as yours, for example. Also, there are some courses of career guidance for children. Perhaps this could also be quite useful, not only for children, but for young people, like up until 40, or for the people, like elderly people over 40. This is a joke, of course. So, Vitaly, could you please share your plans? I know that, of course, the professional guidance for school students is a booming one, because parents spend quite a lot on this for their children, and I'm sure that your products help to get the best way how to get the additional content and to unleash the child's potential as much as possible. Thank you very much. One, two, three. Right, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here with my colleagues. So the professional guidance is quite a wide topic. Briefly, if we talk about it as a topic or as a service, we have such a concept with our colleagues that professional guidance is a proxy service, because it's cross-sectional for many professional areas. I would like to pose this question to our audience. Have you got any service in professional guidance? Could you please raise your hand? Okay, thank you. And who's thought about self-determination, like whom to become, what profession to choose? Could you please raise your hand now? So you just see it with your own eyes. There is a demand. It is important to get a professional guidance for everybody. But not a lot of people, just one or two out of a crowd would really do this. So just for me, for myself, I can say that the professional guidance is like a Wi-Fi. Why? Because it's kind of an entry point to something. When we want to surf on the internet, we are not talking about the mobile internet. We just connect to some Wi-Fi, to some router, and that's how we access the internet. That's how we address our tasks. Quite often, you can get some educational services via the professional guidance. And there are some solutions for that. For example, we also have an offering of a free Wi-Fi. When we want to get a free Wi-Fi, then we have to take a look at an advertisement. But then it's free. And the same could be done in the field of education. So we can help people to get professional guidance for free, but then we will also recommend our professional courses, for example. If we want to get the whole general overview of the market, then we can just render our services on a paid basis. In our case, we see the demand coming in the field of the general education, I mean the school education, among school students of the high school. quite recently, those were only students of high school, because it is actually relevant. And the thing here is that the parents are paying for this, but we are working with their children, with school students. And about 10 or 15 years ago, this segment of active demand was indeed most popular among the school children, school students of the 10th and 11th years. Now, when a child has to make a choice, of course that's a long-term choice, but a child could think about it just for even a couple of seconds. So one has to get ready for that, one has to get the education experience. And if we talk about some science behind this, then this period is described by 10 or 15 years. So from 10 to 15 years, we actually make our important career decisions because we do the self-determination. And during this period from 10 to 15 years, actually correlate quite significantly to everything that we do in our career and with our career outcomes, such as the level of education as well as the level of the payment that we get, or the amount of payment that we get. So when we help a school student to make the right choice, when this school student is between 10 and 15 years old, then we can increase the success of this student's or this child's career in the future. It is very important to take a look at this particular period. And we also have another period of life from 40 years old to 45. This is the crisis, or middle age crisis, so to say, because this person is not young anymore and the person is not older yet. So the professional guidance in the field of education doesn't stop at school or at the university, because a school student chooses the major, the profession, and then, for example, when this student leaves the university or the school, he or she understands that the profession that they've chosen can somehow also evolutionize. That's why they also have to be flexible. And of course, it is directly connected to our career literacy. We need to be aware of the market and we need to guide ourselves on the market. And so when people are choosing their career path when they're adults, just if we take a look at the data science, because it's hyping now, this is meaningless. Because it's like if we joined a programming course because our friend has joined it. So it doesn't make any sense. This decision should be made like this. So there is another large segment among adults, and it's more about building the trajectory, about mentorship, about support and accompanying. And actually here we can get faster results, because if we recommend something to a school student of 7th or 8th year, then we will see the results something like in 5 years. Even though we help the child through the additional education courses. And when we are talking about adults, the results can come very soon, quite fast. For example, we've helped an adult, and then just in a 6-month period, this adult person can understand whether it works for them or not. So the professional guidance in the field of education is a very complex educational task. Challenge. Why? Because we are trying to project the future, especially with children. When we work in this field, we have to understand very transparently and clearly what will be the market situation in a couple of years. We have to do the market analysis, market research, what's going on there, what are the trends. Just recently I've got a link from my colleagues, and they were the pre-revolutionary professions, such as, the seller of a fish or somebody else, a person who worked with horses, etc., etc. So indeed, what I mean here is that the market situation is ever-changing, and we have to take that into account. It's very important. Right, thank you very much. It is very interesting. So, for those who are over 45 years old, I'd like to explain a little bit. We can compare the metaphor that has just been used, not with the Wi-Fi as a contact or connecting point, but to a modem device that is also kind of an entry point for us. Okay, so now I'd like to give the floor to one of the leading mega cities that consumes innovations in bulks. It is a piloting platform as well as the opinion leader and kind of a shining example. Moscow, it is Moscow, and we know that there are portfolio companies in the field of medicine, and indeed Moscow is a leading one when it comes to innovations. So you, as the head of the Moscow Innovation Cluster, could you please, Alexei, tell us about the projects that you test and that are very much in demand, and also about the projects that are characterized with some shortages? Maybe there is some need that hasn't yet been satisfied and met up. Right, thank you very much. I would like to welcome everybody who joined us during this wonderful morning session. I'd like to start from history. Okay, so we're discussing EdTech, but one has to understand that with its significant dynamic, which marks the industry for the last 5 years in Russia and a bit longer across the whole world, still, EdTech is a very narrow segment, small segment, to compare it with the whole volume of educational services that are rendered in the world. So EdTech accounts for about from 3 to 5%. And this is very interesting indeed. If we get back to the Prosveshchenie group of companies, or Enlightenment, if we translate the name into English. So the company has existed for 91 years, right? Yes, and if we take a look at the educational systems that I'll mention, sometimes they've been developing for hundreds of years, and they actually are the face of the contemporary education, because the contemporary school has existed for about 300 years, if we start with Mr. Kamensky. So EdTech is a very bold and arrogant, but still an adolescent. And it is characterized with a startup culture. And this adolescent, so to say, doesn't really understand how these huge and complex systems are working. So, why I mention this? I do it because when we talk about the relations between a city and EdTech, as well as medicine, for example, then we have to compare this inertia, and we have to compare it with our principles of organization, with our fundamentals. And I think that sometimes we tend to lie to ourselves. And now we say, like, everything has changed, everything is digital now, and now you find it difficult to face a seller of a fish in the market. But this is on the surface. But under the water, we would see that, or in the water, we'd see that there are some deep transformational processes that take place in the field of education. And we have to take a look at like 10-year or 50-year trends. It is important. In this context, EdTech in Moscow is feeling just good, very well. So this segment has grown 6 times over the course of 4 years, talking about venture investments. In 2021, the volume of deals in Moscow was about 149 million, and back in 2018 that volume accounted for about 24 million. Of course, the pandemic played its role here, and that is advantage of after the pandemic, because it revealed the characteristics of traditional institutions that are digitized in some form, but they are not fit for remote learning, distant learning. They are not fit for monitoring the individual development trajectories. And when you have your students at homes, in their homes, rather than in class, it is very difficult to control this group of students. So the traditional systems that is inherited from the USSR, and that one was inherited from gymnasiums and lyceums. A lot of disadvantages of this system were revealed and unveiled. And it happened just recently. In 2019, we conducted an experiment. We had a room with the representatives of schools, such as teachers and directors of schools, and the representatives of startups, and we tried to facilitate their communication. And the communication between them didn't happen. 49% of the traditional education representatives said that they've never been reached out by any startup. Only 5% said that they were ready to start cooperation with some startups. And one of the reasons against the technologies was in the parents. Because the parents said, we're against these new technologies, because we were trained at schools, in the classrooms, without any digitalization, just with a blackboard. And digitalization depersonalizes the learning process. But now a lot has changed indeed. Within our activities in the Moscow Innovation Cluster, we launched a piloting program for some new technological solutions. Before that, it was very difficult to talk to schools, but now we see some huge interest. We see the interest in some solutions that can help to monitor the attention of students that are learning distantly, remotely, during the class. Because one has to understand whether a student is involved in the learning process or just playing a computer game. Then these technologies can help to assess the dynamics of learning. So the remote or distant format is also quite in demand. Another thing is the format that can help, or a technology that can help teachers to get ready for their classes and to present this to their students, because obviously the traditional format doesn't work, it doesn't stick to the students. This is not kind of an individual factor. This is the factor that is observed across the whole generation, and one has to note that down. And another thing, despite the fact that this process is quite slow, still the additional education systems saw some booming indeed, because there's less regulation. About 80% of the companies that are coming to us, I mean startups with their projects, are the companies that suggest and propose some new forms to work with content, or how to create this content. And about also here we have a lot of companies that offer some additional courses in English, because the school education cannot satisfy all the needs in this respect. Another aspect that we mentioned today is the professional guidance in the field of education. It is very important for both parents and children. And what's also significant, it is important for our city. Why? Because currently the main limitation coming from a traditional school is that you train a student for something think that will happen in the future. But a school student doesn't know what will happen in the future, and nobody knows actually what will happen. So this is a context of uncertainty. Unfortunately, now a school has just started to try to project the future. So there is a huge potential. This niche is not filled yet. And we see and project some significant growth in this respect. Moscow, as a city, is interested in having people maximize their potential for themselves and for the urban economy, for which they need to find the right profession. Thanks a lot. That is very interesting indeed. If we had the same amount of time, I'm sure that you'd continue our discussion with the same level of interest. I'm sure that you'd discuss different areas. Thank you very much for not mentioning and assessing the Bologna system, possible withdrawal of Russia from the Bologna system. Okay, so as we see from today's discussion, the questions of the contemporary education, the questions of self-determination, be that for a student or for a young professional or for a senior professional, a senior manager, the questions of education are relevant for everybody now. And they've always been relevant. They've never lost their significance for us. Listening to all the participants of our discussion today, I believe that still this thin layer of digitalization helps us to reflect on and to be more responsible when it comes to our daily choices, because the professional career guidance, the choice of our career, the choice of our hobbies, the choice of our additional training programs, this is a choice that we have to make. And we are getting some assistance that can help us with this, that can help us to unleash our potential as early as possible and with a bigger return later on, as well as they can provide us with the right effect that we will see in the future when we, for example, are choosing a profession when we are a 5-year school student, and we see the effects like in 10 years or maybe later. That's all very nice, and I would like to wish all the participants to implement successfully their strategies, maybe at some kind of time to do the pivot and enter some new niches and fields. We won't talk about corporate universities here, and I would like to wish the city to get the high-end and top-class professionals as early as possible. And I would like to wish Skolkovo to be successful and prosperous, because all the visionaries in the field of education and human capital should know that they can come to Skolkovo and get the consultation that they need to get the partner that they really require to collaborate. And those who are listening to us in an online format, connecting through either Wi-Fi or modem, doesn't matter. Have a good day.
ВК-звонки доступны везде и без ограничений, в 4К и с активным шумоподавлением. Будьте всегда на связи в ВК-звонках.
Встречайте приложение ВК-клипы, удобный видеоредактор, уникальные маски и эффекты и стильные фильтры для обработки. Еще быстрее, проще, вертикальнее. Теперь в отдельном приложении ВК-клипы. Место встречи талантов.
Привет! Классно шьешь, варишь, печешь и вообще что-то производишь в Москве? Тогда сейчас самое время поверить в то, что ты делаешь, заявить о себе и занять свое место на рынке, пока другие не заняли. Смотри, это твоя дверь в новый мир. Открывай и узнай, чем мы можем тебе помочь. Москва-24 для бизнеса. Давай с нами.
Журнал «Эксперт» — это российский и международный бизнес, общественно-политические процессы, аналитика и прогнозы, рейтинги и интервью. Специальные условия на подписку на сайте expert.ru. «Эксперт» — настоящий деловой журнал.